This is Aaron Golub, host of the Blind Ambition podcast. We'll be bringing you world-class leaders, entrepreneurs, and athletes, people who have overcome obstacles and used their ambition to create enormous success in their lives. If you enjoy this podcast, if you get anything out of it, the only thing I'll ever ask is that you subscribe, rate, and review. Hope you enjoy.
What's up, everyone? This is your host, Aaron Golub, and today I'm joined by Ashwin Jacob. Ashwin, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Aaron. How's your day going so far?
It's good, man. Good. Just getting some work done, enjoying the last little bit of, decent weather here in Boston. What about you?
I woke up early today. I started off my day with a hike and back into my routine of doing some intermittent fasting. So waiting till afternoon to have my first meal of the day and, keeping everything kind of in discipline and keeping things moving as much as I can. Especially with, being in quarantine, it's very easy to get out of your routine and develop bad habits in place of the habits and routines that you set prior to this.
Yeah, I mean, you're a big routine guy, as am I. What do you think really helps you out with your routine? How do you develop yours? Any advice for maybe people out there who maybe don't have a morning routine or a daily routine?
So this is going to sound really counterintuitive because it seems like I really like working out or I really like eating healthy. No, I'm just like everybody else. I hate sometimes having to work out, but I know on days that if I stay to my routine, if I get my hike in, if I get a little workout in first thing in the morning, I know I'm going to be that much more productive in the day. If I'm not doing that in the morning, if I'm like, hey, I need to get this stuff done before I get my workout in, I know I'm accomplishing less. And I was spending a lot of time, like I told you yesterday, I was in line for 8 hours in a heat wave in Los Angeles trying to get into the DMV, and I was listening to David Goggins. He is probably one of the most successful triathletes, and he comes from a horrible upbringing. And one of the things he brought up during the process of even recording that audiobook, he would wake up extra early to get his, flutter kicks, his push-ups, his sit-ups in, because once he left his hotel room in the morning to go record, there are a lot of things that were out of his control. And getting those victories in for yourself is an important part of it. So like for me, it's every morning I wake up and I make my bed. It's a small victory. It sounds really silly, but I come home and my bed looks pristine, and it's learning to do these things not for the extrinsic results for other people. So it's not looking good for other people. It's not my room looks clean in case I bring a girl back. It's clean for my own well-being. It's clean so that I can focus on the work that I need to accomplish today. And really just learning to do these things that are right for yourself.
It's about building those disciplines.
It's building the discipline, man. It's willpower.
It's about building those discipline,
So much of life is willpower. And so much of success is willpower. It's getting out of your own mind when people call you a loser, when people say that you're going to fail, when people say that you fucking suck at what it is that you want to do, and getting out there and be like, you know what? I'm comfortable looking foolish because, dude, I'm not naturally the most athletic guy in the world. But when I got into eating healthy and I forced myself to work out, I didn't look great doing it, and no one does. It's getting your head out of that zone of discomfort or what are people going to think? Because most people that are in shape, most people that are working out at the gym, they're not there to judge how you are performing. They're there to let you do what you need to do. And a lot of people are willing to help you out, especially if you ask for it. If there's something that you don't know how to do, if you ask someone that's an expert at it, most people want to see you succeed. They love what they do. They found a pleasure in what they do. They want to share that with others. So I think that's an amazing thing. And dude, like you're a perfect example of doing that, playing a professional sport or going to a D1 school and playing athletics at that level with a disability is not an easy thing to do. I can feel bad for myself, or I'm going to go out there and do something that I really want to try and do. I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities. I might not be the best in the world at it, but I'm going to try my best. And I think that is super important.
100%, dude. I appreciate that, but I completely agree. And so, I'd love to get into a little bit of your upbringing. I know you grew up in Boston as well, kind of what your life was like back here, and then kind of what led you to leave and head to LA, because, we got connected through, I heard you on a friend of mine, Brody Kern's podcast, and just, listening to your story, then I'd love to just dig into, you have a very interesting journey, the jobs you've had, the traveling you've done, and I'd love to just go back and start, you living in Boston.
Let's do it. So my parents are first generation immigrants from India. My dad is from the same village that my mother's from in India. and my dad was working as a teacher in Nigeria. I was born pretty much 9 months after the wedding, so I'm pretty sure I know around the time frame that I was conceived. And, I grew up in a very weird situation where, my parents are very Indian. I was raised in Framingham, Massachusetts. There's a lot of Brazilians. It's a very diverse population. And I like to characterize myself personally as ethnically confused because I look very, very Indian on the outside, but a lot of my experiences are not that. But, my family is very much so that way. So a lot of life was trying to figure out where I fit in. I always didn't feel like I fit in any situation or any setting. And a lot of times, the times that I saw people that, I thought I would get along with, it was on a TV screen. I talked to the TV screen back and forth. I was listening to music and, really sympathizing with other people's, journeys. And I did what I could to the best of my abilities to try and get into entertainment, even though it was such an unrealistic goal. And ultimately, that led me into working in nightlife in Boston, promoting events. And that was my foray. That was my first experience working with celebrities, working with real models, working with entertainers. And, I ended up going to Bentley for my undergrad, did a study abroad in Florence, Italy. And Florence is where my life changed 180 from this is a completely unrealistic expectation to if you control what you're able to do, you can find success. I went to Florence with about, I think 1,000 euros, which is $2,000 US. And I spent, a good amount of that my first day in Florence, and I got a job as a nightclub promoter. Doing that, I got hired by someone that was throwing parties at the Playboy Mansion to throw parties at the Playboy Mansion and host Playmate events around the U.S. And that was my first foray into entertainment. I got connected with actors. I got connected with musicians. And I got a chance to really show what my capability was. So a lot of that opportunity came from that initial opportunity of by chance meeting someone that worked with Playboy, doing the parties at the mansion. So not even Playboy official, but just the team that works on the parties, and leveraging the parties and leveraging the relationships that I built through that to open doors and open avenues to other, business opportunities in the entertainment world. And it was just really getting creative, really getting resourceful, but also taking the time to genuinely care about these people. I care about the other people that I work with. And then from there, being director, speak volumes of what you're able to do.
Yeah. Sorry, it broke up for a bit, but I think we're good. I'll just edit that out. But that's awesome. And I mean, what was the experience like working at Playboy? How did that introduction go? Because, you don't just stumble across a guy who, works for them and you get a job. From what I remember about your story, you essentially had to throw a party or something pretty last minute in Florence to prove yourself to get a job at that club or something like that. Talk a little bit about that experience and then how you actually got that role with Playboy.
Okay. So the way that I got the role in Florence in itself was really, really funny. The first day, I didn't want to live with people that I went to school with. That was like my big thing. I wanted to meet new people. I wanted new experiences in my life, and I wanted to, develop new relationships. So I went without any of my fraternity brothers. None of my real friends were on this trip. I knew one person kind of that was in a sorority, and that was about it in Florence. So I knew one person. I got assigned a random roommate from Chicago. We split a bedroom, and then there were like 4 or 5 other people in my apartment. And I wasn't really friends with them. I just was friends with the one kid and then the one girl. We went out with our roommates the first night, and it was one of those situations, my family didn't come for money, and I had that very, very limited amount of money that came with me too. We went to a dinner, and it was a lot of like, meats that I'm not necessarily comfortable. I'm a pretty picky eater when it comes to what I eat. And right now I'm primarily vegetarian, but even at that point, I wasn't eating that much, red meats. So it's primarily all red meat. So stuff that I really didn't eat. And they bought tons of liquor, tons of all this stuff. And I was like, damn, this is going to be a horrible bill, right? At the end of it, we ended up just splitting it just between like the guys that were there. And we had probably, like a good amount of girls with us too. So this was way more expensive than I set out on going to spend. So that pretty much depleted more than half of my funds. So I had like basically, under 1,000 euros left for my trip because that bill was just crazy. And like the initial setup, getting to town, getting the internet set up, getting like some basic necessities. So I was down, being hungover from that day in my orientation, hangover problems. Sports team or something that they liked from Boston. I'm working with the club. Yeah. Did it break up?
Hey man.
Is the internet
Yeah, it broke
spotty
up
in your
pretty
place
bad.
or is it spotty at my place? I think it's my place, to be honest with you, because we have problems.
Yeah, mine's pretty strong. But
I'm gonna
the good
connect
news
it
is,
to. I'm gonna connect it to my Wi-Fi internet off my phone. So give me 1 sec.
so you're at the table, you get the bill at the end of the night, they split it, and you don't have a ton of money left over. So what happens
So
next?
we end up going outside, and somehow, like, dude, like, I was not friends with anyone except for my roommate. Like, these were people that I did not like necessarily. I didn't like their character. And there's a couple of other stories that happened with this group of people. I ended up basically building my own friend group because, like, I got abandoned by our group day one. So I ended up, like, getting separated. And then I ended up going out and having a great time with random people that I met that night. And I'm like, yo, I don't think, like, this is an issue. I just don't get along with a specific group of people. And that's not on them. That's not on me. It's just we're not compatible. So the next day, I'm hungover and I have to be at an orientation. So the orientation kicks off. There's a little break, an hour into it. I go to this convenience store, and this guy, Josh Kilburn, he's like, a really good friend of mine still to this day. And this is now since 2008. This is 14 years later. This is someone that I still talk to. It's someone that I still value. I'm actually seeing the owner of the nightclub that I worked with this coming week in Florence, Italy, in Los Angeles this week. I worked with another one of the guys that I met over there that got me the job in still to this day. So this is relationships that have lasted me 14 years from meeting them in Florence, Italy with a phone that I couldn't even get onto the internet on. So I ended up in the shop, got a bottle of water, knew the one girl, knew the one guy, don't know anybody else. Meet this kid, don't really have that much money. I want to go out. And he tells me that he works with some nightclubs and he does all these events and he does all this tour guiding. And I wanted to see Europe and I wanted to do a lot of these experiences. And he asked how many people I could bring. At that point, I have no idea what level of confidence got into me because I'm not naturally a very confident person. I think that's a big misconception that a lot of people have about, like, entrepreneurs or people that go into business. I think you end up doing it because you have a lack of self-esteem. You feel a lack of value so that you're comfortable risking or losing it all. And that was very much so my truth, Right now, I know 2 people. This is someone I've met in a convenience store. If I flop completely, this just means this person might not be my friend at all, right? But if I do well, then the upside is just so much there. I'm going to work my hardest to do my best. So I end up telling him that I think I can bring 100 people through the door. This is my second day in Florence. I have 4 people that I don't really like. I have 2 friends, and I know no one else other than the random people that I met the night before, which were about 3. Told him 100. He said, dude, show up with 100. I will give anyone that comes to your group, guy, girl, whatever, free shot, no cover. And, if you like a girl or something, I'll hook you up with some drink tickets and you can drink for free and we'll hire you. We'll give you a job working with me. So I go back to my orientation thing. I sat next to a girl that went to North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and her whole sorority was there. And I didn't know this at this point. And I just asked her a couple of questions. I said, hey, I'm not sure if you know Florence or if you guys have plans tonight, but I'd love to invite you out. And if you have any friends that want to come, guys, girls, whatever. Not hitting on her. Straight up, I'm just asking her to go to this nightclub. And she's like, hey, do you mind if I bring some of my friends? And I'm like, sure. And I don't know my way around Florence. And to be very honest with you, I still have a pretty notoriously bad sense of direction. I said, okay, cool. Let's do this meeting at this one point, which is like basically a block away from my house. I know how to get to this one point. So I tell her that. And I tell a couple of other people that. And then I basically just keep telling every person I run into, I'm approaching random people that appear to be Americans and telling them to come to this one club in Florence, telling them it's the most amazing experience. I've never been inside this night, right? Free shot, no cover, 21. That was the name of the nightclub. Free shot, no cover. Free shot, no cover. Free shot, no cover. And I end up telling Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, the guys want to go somewhere else. And he's like, I want to go somewhere else. I'm like, dude, Jimmy, trust me. I've talked to tons of girls. This is going to be the best experience of your life. So Jimmy kind of reluctantly decides to come with me to this point. And during the day, I walked like 5 times from my house to this location. And then from this location to the nightclub so that I don't mess it up with this group. Like, I don't know if there's going to be 2 people that show up, but there's going to be a lot of people that show up. And my expectation still in my mind is I think there's going to be, maybe 30 or 40. But 30 or 40 would have been an amazing number. For a nightclub promoter to pull in like 30 to 40 people, that is amazing in today's standards for a lot of spots. If you can bring in 20 to 30 heads a night, you're good at your job. I quoted to 100, which is absurd. And I ended up in the weirdest scenario. Come that time period, these people showed up to my meeting location. And I walked into that nightclub with 124 girls and Jimmy.
Oh my God. Only
124
124
girls.
girls and Jimmy.
124 girls and Jimmy. We had no other guys. Like, my 4 roommates did not want to come to this club, even though I desperately needed them to come. They didn't come until later in that
I
night.
love this.
Right? Like,
Oh
so this
my
was like,
God.
I am not the charismatic guy. I am not the guy that people, you know, are coming up to at this point in my life. I'm just this schmucky kid with absolutely very little money, trying to fucking make a little bit of money so that I can afford to go on some of these trips and, you know, not have to spend my whole nut for the month on going out, right? So through this, I ended up building one of the most extraordinary and long-lasting set of friendships with this whole group of guys, and we were essentially like the Lost Boys of Florence. We were all from different parts of the world. All of us were just, you know, trying to discover ourselves, and I developed a real sense of like true friendship with these guys that were all kind of misfits in their own way, but we were escaping reality in Florence, and we were taking out these large groups, and I ended up working for a ton of other clubs throughout that. A lot of people heard about this big group that I showed up with. So I got hired by everybody from restaurants, big fashion stores, to bring people into these shops. And that became my life. It was all day. I would roam around the streets with a couple of these guys and approach new groups and bring out different groups and figure out creative ways to make money. You know, I had restaurants that I get free meals at. So if I wanted to take someone on a date, I would take a girl on a date to a restaurant that I worked with. If I wanted to buy a girl a gift, I'd take them to a fashion shop or custom leather designer and get them, you know, a nice leather jacket. These are like expensive products, but I had no idea the value in these relationships. And I developed real friendships with a lot of the people that owned these shops. They were getting tremendous value, and I was getting tons of value out of it because a lot of these experiences were things that I couldn't afford. You know, I couldn't afford to eat at all these nice restaurants. I couldn't afford to buy these clothes. I couldn't afford to take people on trips to, you know, Lake Como, Cinque Terre, the Swiss Alps, out to Greece, all these amazing spots. But by virtue of this job and by the virtue of the fact that I really wanted to learn about where other people were from, I did it. And throughout that process, you know, this became kind of like an extended family of sorts. And towards the end of it, I was like, hey, it's really wild that you're working at the Playboy Mansion. I watched Entourage, dude. I love that show. I love the episode where Johnny Drama got kicked out of the mansion. That was my goal. If I could go to the mansion and just get kicked out, that would be like, if I walk to the door and I get rejected, that is a W in my book. That is so cool. That's an amazing story, right?
Yeah.
So my first trip to California, not only did I go to the Playboy Mansion, but I helped promote and produce an event at the Playboy Mansion while I was still in college. And I was liaising between playmates and supermodels and, you know, in a very curated atmosphere of, you know, highly coveted. It was before, you know, you could generally go online and buy a ticket to go to the Playboy Mansion. It was before, you know, there were just random Playboy parties that were produced and you just pay a fee and you're able to get in. It was a lot more curated at that point. You needed to know someone that was vouched for, that was able to invite you and was able to sell a ticket. And it was really a blessing to, you know, remove a lot of those mental roadblocks by doing something that extraordinary in my mind. In this day and age, if you ask me if it's that cool to throw a party at the Playboy Mansion, I don't think it's that cool. But at that point, for that kid in that college experience, that was the coolest experience of my life. And to this day, a lot of those guys that I worked with are like my family. And it was a huge, huge blessing to really just invest in myself, give myself the shot to develop and expand as a person. It makes for an amazing story. My first day, my first trip to California, I end up at the Playboy Mansion. That is a fucking amazing story.
That is awesome, man. What, you know, from there, how did you pivot? Kind of what led you from, you know, being a promoter to what you're doing now?
So I always wanted to be in traditional entertainment. I always wanted to be doing these big business deals, but, you know, a lot of times you need money, you need the right resources. And what I learned is a lot of people are very open to meeting with you if you know someone that they trust or that they value. In my case, my blessing came from a lot of these playmates, these models, because a lot of their boyfriends were in business or were, you know, somewhat notable actors, celebrities. And that kind of opened up a door, an opportunity for me to be able to, you know, network, get my foot in there, get these small little opportunities that I could parlay into bigger opportunities. And since then, you know, I've done everything from, you know, luxury rentals. If you want to get in a plane or buy a G5 or a G3, I'll sell you a G5 or a G3. Exotic car rentals, concierge services, setting up the most ridiculous experiences around the world to, you know, actually running like, you know, the real technicalities of a major drop shipping company to a big fashion brand that sells inside of Macy's. I did like all the logistics, came up with the creative, came up with the celebrities campaign to run that, to brand partnerships with companies like BMW, NBC Universal, coming up with creative for major film releases like Mission Impossible. And a lot of it just came from that there is no task too big or too small. And also that personal level of accountability for myself, which is if I'm working with that t-shirt company and there's a distribution coming on, I will literally go out to, you know, the Mexico border and be at that printing shop, putting t-shirts on that printer to bring back to LA for a premiere with Apple at Puff's house. I'm going to do it. It doesn't matter what the task is, big or small. I'm going to figure out a way to make it happen.
Dude, I love that. That's awesome. I mean, it's just that commitment, that dedication. It's something that so few people actually have.
Yeah, dude, it's tough to do.
It's, I mean, you know, we talked a little beforehand about kind of the new project that you're working on, what you're coming out with now. You want to touch on that and kind of explain to everyone what your next steps are?
Yeah, so I was a talent manager for a long time. I've been doing a lot of consulting projects, and over the past year or two, I've been really investing into my personal brand. So that means pushing out more content across social media to build out networks. So I'm selling that on ashwinjacob.com. And that is my big project right now that I'm working on, is the Star-Studded Network. It's a process to build out relationships with people at the highest levels, regardless of the network that you have, regardless of how you feel about yourself, and regardless of where in the world you are. It's a framework that I use. Dude, this is a way for you to really methodically invest into the relationships that are already in your life, deeper connect with them so that you can really bring value to others. If you bring value to other people, then you're never going to be worried about your shot.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it at all, if you got one thing out of it, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you.